It was 100 years ago. It was 100 years and 33 minutes ago that what we celebrate as Veterans Day was first celebrated. It was originally Armistice Day, and it was 101 years ago, on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, that armistice was signed, that ended the hostilities of World War I. And a year later, at 11 a.m., a year later all day, I imagine, was a celebration of the anniversary of that event. And what became part of the celebration was a they didn't call it a meditation, I guess it was 2 minutes of silence every year at 11 a.m. So we're almost right on target. Armistice Day became Veterans Day in 1954 to celebrate those who had served in all wars. And the 2 minutes of silence that were given, the first minute was for all of those lost in battle. The second minute was for those who were left behind and the implications of that. And we're going to do a third minute to contemplate how our own being peace creates peace. And that concept that once we're doing that, there is peace on earth. So let's do a 3-minute silent meditation. Thank all our veterans. Thank everyone related to our veterans who have dealt with the aftermath, whether people came home or not. Let's give it 3 minutes. on back to today and ourselves and the place we are now. Isn't 3 minutes a long time when you're not used to being silent together? And think of the difference when you're like checking email or Facebook and you only have 3 minutes. How fast does it go by? And meditation sometimes goes by much faster. I've had complaints. My stool is gone. Thank you. There we go. I've heard people complain that when we do a meditation here, we do it too short a time. And I've heard other people say how long it seems when it's 3 minutes. What I'm talking about today is largely my trip to India and what I learned there. You know, I went to India to find myself, to know the truth within, you know. I knew that before I went. But it was a very interesting trip, and it was related to a yoga course that I've been involved in, a much more intensive yoga course than originally crossed my mind when I signed up for it. And part of what I committed to was a daily practice of breathing exercises and meditation and the physical yoga asanas or postures that we do. And I got into it because I needed to do something to move my body because I hate exercise so much. And the gym was, I went to pulmonary rehab for my lungs, you know. And the cardiac rehab people are there, and the pulmonary rehab people are there, and I'm on the machine going, oh God, take me now. It didn't seem like the most helpful thing. It was probably good for my legs and my lungs, but it just wasn't working for me. And I needed something that involved my body, that I could do for exercise and not hate, because I don't have discipline. I'm not going to do something every day that I hate. So I thought maybe if I got into the yoga, because I know I love there's a big reading list, and it was a lot of books that I had read years ago, so it was great to revisit them and read some new ones, and the breathing exercises and the meditation I thought maybe that would suck me in and my body would go along. And so of course what I did was spent way more time on the meditation and the breathing and the part that I didn't go there for than on the body stuff, which is the part I needed to go there for. But what it reminded me of, and I've known this at different points in my life, and I'm sure you've all done something like this, like, you go to the gym for a while and it makes you feel real good, and you don't go anymore. And even though you know it made you feel really good, but you still don't go anymore and you can't make yourself go. And I had done that with meditation, and years ago, when I was very young, I used to meditate regularly. And that was back in the days. It was really hard for me to even sit still that long. And I knew I was like the least spiritual person in the whole room. And I always had to cough, and I always had to itch, and I always had to go to the bathroom. And it was torture. But over time, it changed, and I became a meditator to some degree. And with this it's been like 4 or 5 months in this course now. And doing a daily meditation, even of a few minutes, and I'm not talking about the one we say we do. I shouldn't say that. There are other meditations. When you're gardening or when you lose yourself in nature or in something you love to do, that is a form of meditation too. I don't mean to discount it entirely. But there's something different about a sitting, silent meditation that makes so much difference in life, and a few minutes a day. And that has been the biggest thing. It has Ken makes fun of me because yoga is supposed to, make you calm and peaceful. And I spent all my time the last 5 months worrying about how I'm doing these poses and am I going to get through this class. And but one of the things that offsets that is the daily meditation, and And believe me, when I say I'm doing a daily meditation practice, that's a lie. I haven't done it every single day for all of these months, but I've done it daily more than not. And it makes such a huge difference in life. And it makes a difference in ways that you don't really think about, like the turmoil, the things that turn around in the back of your head that you wonder and try to decide what to do and what to fix. And the answers don't pop into your head. Well, for me anyway, I don't know what happens. Other people may have an entirely different experience, but for me, I do get to a peaceful, silent place now when I meditate. And then throughout the day, I have insights and I know the answers to things I didn't know, or I worry less about the things I worried about. So I think that, when we don't know where else to go, because that's the only way we're going to change anything when we're desperate, pretty much, keep in mind that meditation is a great place to go. And to try to, even like I said, 10 minutes a day will make a difference. I'm going to tell you about my trip to India. And that all came about at... I have a drink in the back when I grab it. Sorry about that. The yoga class and the India trip came about by the generosity, incredible generosity of a number of people. And, I don't travel. I've called myself a non-traveler. Thank you. It's water. It's holy water. With coffee beans. I consider myself a non-traveler, but when somebody hands you a trip to India, you suddenly become a traveler. This is my favorite picture of me. It's not my favorite picture of India. I'm not quite that self-centered. But that's just sums up the whole trip to me. This is a shopping trip. Paul is not here today, is she? I wanted her to see this because she would die. This is I don't want Paula to die. Let me rephrase that. This is a retail store, and Paula had a retail store for years. And Ken, I also thought, anybody who's ever owned merchandise that they're selling, this is a room packed full of bags, curtains, bedspreads, dresses, all the stuff that's for sale. And there's a room out front, that looks a little more like a showroom. But we sat there, and we're sitting on merchandise. It's just piled, and piles were falling over, and we were drinking tea in there, and the owner of the shop entertained us, and it was like we were old friends. And we spent a couple hours and quite a bit of money sitting. And I couldn't sit on this stuff. I kept picturing Ken going, "Don't be careful of that merchandise," The cows everywhere, and I just loved seeing them. Like I said to the kids, it's unnerving at first. You see such a big animal, and they take no notice of you, or they just kind of come up and say, "Hi, how are you?" It's fantastic. This is one of the temples, and there was a field trip. There were trips every day to different places, and I didn't go on this one. I didn't go on a number of them because there was so much walking involved. This, you have to walk up steps to the top. So I knew I'd have to be airlifted out if I went. But there are temples all over the place. It's such a weird juxtaposition of junk and old stuff and new stuff and holy stuff, and it's truly amazing. This is the Ganges, and all these pictures I'm showing you are walking distance from where we stayed. Walking distance for me, which is not real far. You saw the cows in the street. I love this graffiti, and I tried to look that up on Facebook, but I couldn't find it. This is out the window of the room where I stayed. And there were donkeys, and then one night a bunch of either donkeys or horses. I sound really dumb with this, but I couldn't tell the difference. But they were carrying a bunch of stuff, and it was late at night. And it was like, I've never had a stampede by my window before. You know? And it wasn't quite a stampede, but it was wonderful. And these monkeys, this is a light-colored monkey, and these are the friendlier ones. The brown ones I was warned about are the ones that will steal your stuff, and they're not very friendly. These aren't friendly enough to come down and visit with you like the cows do, but they're all over the place, and they'll come pretty close. We went to an event called an Arti, and this is the entrance going into that. That was my really holy experience in India. Everything about it, everything is holy, you know, when your mind is open and what's not holy, you know, even the turmoil we go through is holy, but the likable and holy, high spiritual event that really touched me was this event, and there's no way the pictures can really convey it because there's no sound. I don't have audio of it, but there was chanting and singing. This is the entrance to this incredible property right on the Ganges. And the statuary, it's called Arti, the event, and it happens every night, and it's packed every night. And this is the main body of people, but look, I'm just amazed at the statues and the things that we've read about, you know. In this picture, if you're familiar with the Gita, Bobby, I thought you'd like this one. If you're familiar with the Gita, you see that picture, that statue, and it's Arjuna and Krishna in the chariot. And to go to a place where that is known, you know, everybody looks at it and most people here, I don't know how many of you have read the Bhagavad Gita, but it's the holy book of one of the holy books of the Hindus, and just to see that, it was magnificent. And there's a picture of it. To look up and go, oh my God, you know, these things are things I've read about in all the holy teachings, and here they're almost commonplace. I mean, commonplace in the way that church things are common to us, you know, not in I don't mean to be disrespectful of them in commonplace. The statue underneath is out on the water. It's a Shiva, and it is the single most powerful inanimate object I have ever felt or seen. I was dumbstruck when I saw it, and the pictures again don't come close to the real to seeing the real thing. It's so magnificent, and it's so revered. The energy, I think the energy of everybody bounces off. You know how people come in here and they talk about the energy that we've built up in here. Imagine in these ancient holy places. This is a ceremony where at the Arti there's an organization that puts it on. It's an ashram or I think it's an ashram, and there are things that look kind of like this, with big handles on them and candles in them, and some of them have cobra head handles, and they're passed around. So they're passed around among all these people who don't know each other, and they don't worry about them, you know, taking off, and so they're passed in prayer from one person to the next, and then there are offerings floated down the Ganges while this is going on. There's one of the cobra-headed ones, and some of you might know that woman. She teaches at Yoga in Common, and there you know her too. And this is one of the statues on the ground. But I'm going to show you pictures of other things, and I have a bunch of, you know, I always have stories. I could come up with a story about walking down the stairs, you know me. But people asked me about, they kept saying, you know, India's it's a whole different thing. What's it like? And I kept trying to think, what's it like? Because it is changing. It's such a huge thing. So I thought about it, and I wrote this, and I have to read it because I couldn't think of it again. It took me a while. But I said, I've been pondering how to interpret, never mind explain, the effect India had on me. And this might sound a little woo-woo, but, you know, when did I not? And when did Unity not? So you'll probably forgive me for that. Someone mentioned to me the other day that for them, the more ancient the culture, the stronger the draw is. And I think that may have something to do with it. India seemed to speak to me in a language much older than words. It's one I don't understand in my brain, and that's where I'm used to knowing things, or at least processing them. This is different. This is different. This is like the ground, the river, the mountains, speaking for and through the earth, and all the residual energy of the people and happenings that is layered on that earth, and sending its knowing into the marrow of my bones, where it's understood. Anyway, I should have printed this. Where it's understood by the same stardust there that I am made of too. My understanding of it, the message communicated to me, is not one of words. It's a being change. Subtle but definite. The only thing I can compare it to is the kind of knowing you get as a result of a daily meditation habit. I've realized that I have felt this in other places, but it was too subtle for me to even pick up on until the intensity of India caused me to realize that it is a thing. I think it's a language that is probably shared from every part of the earth, and it's one I'll be paying more attention to and trying to learn. So that was my big, that was my takeaway on India in general, and that was the intensity of it. But then we had one day, like I said, we were out on different events every day, and we went to the Beatles ashram, which I consider a kind of a marketing trick because the Beatles didn't have an ashram. The Beatles went to visit the Maharishi's ashram. But this is it, and it's abandoned now, and it's covered in all kinds of great graffiti, and it's, you know, well, it's one of the things that's within walking distance to the place where we were. The city we were in is a holy city. There's no meat and no alcohol, and when I was told that, I said, I don't care, how's the coffee? Okay. And I have a story about coffee coming up. But this was in walking distance of where we went, so it's part of the reason that we visited this instead of some of the other temples. This is the view over the Ganges from the buildings that the Maharishi and many followers besides the Beatles and Donovan and Mia Farrow and those people stayed in. And these are articles about it. And what really struck me here was that so I know a lot of you remember when the Beatles visiting the Maharishi was news. When I was in these buildings, I was the only person I was history. You know, they were reading and telling stories about it. And I was the only person remembering it. And it just struck me something about age and time always blows my mind anyway, you know. And I remember when the Maharishi brought us transcendental meditation, and you weren't allowed to do it. It wasn't something your mother wanted you doing. If only my mother had known the things I was doing, she would not have put "don't meditate" on the list. But it was scary to people. It was a new thing and a new time, and I was trying to convey that to the young people that I was with, and there's no conveying that. There's no conveying history to people in a way that they can feel it, I know that when I was a kid, anything that happened before I started having memories, it might as well have been ancient Greece. They were the same to me, 1950 and 1500 were just the same, and you couldn't have changed it because I couldn't have known it. This is the place where we stayed, and I'm going to quicken this up because I think I'm supposed to be done. And this is one of the amazing things too, that the cultural differences, like this building is a nicer building. So if you went to a motel in Myrtle Beach and you got a room in this building, you wouldn't stay there. You'd be down at the desk demanding your money back and doing something else. The difference is once you get out of what you're used to, then everything changes. When the context changes, everything changes. This is a different view of that building from a different side. That's the door to the building. And it is a latch, it's not a lock. And it's a latch to keep the cows out. There is no lock, not lock in that building where we stayed. There's locks on the doors, probably for the Americans and Europeans. There's padlocks. So you can lock your stuff in when you go out, but when you're in there, there's nothing locked. And I loved that. I thought that was great. This is the woman who owns the ashram, and she was a sweet, wonderful, holy woman. She felt so good to be around. And the yoga room, and on the roof where we ate when it was nice enough out for dinner. Now, one of the other things that happened was, as will happen among us, we get a little bitchy sometimes. And there was a little bit of a fray one day. And we're on a holy trip to India, and all these lovely, holy people on this trip forgot a whole lot of what they went for and what they, including yours truly. And it made me think about, I did everything I could, it was a miscommunication that, and it wasn't a major ordeal, but what it made me realize was, it doesn't matter if I'm in India or I'm in New Jersey where I lost my favorite shawl at the Newark airport, or if I'm any place, wherever I am, there I am. I'm taking me with me. So I love the idea now of going to some place that's different and to learn all these things, but there's no cure by going anyplace else. You can't, they talk about it in 12-step programs. A geographic cure doesn't usually work, and you have to have your tools with you to do what you usually do. I know how to heal altercations pretty quickly. I know how to clarify and heal things with people. And I needed to know that day. And we didn't have a problem with anybody in India. It was only among ourselves that we had a problem, which I thought was kind of funny. This was the equivalent of our 7-Eleven. They have singing bowls, malas, incense, and toilet paper. And a lot of it's, for the Americans. And this is also a view from outside my window. And it looks like a tin shed, kind of, right? Oh, I lost the other picture of it. Maybe it'll come up. Anyway, it's a beauty parlor, a barber shop. I think it says hairdressers on the front. And it's busy all the time. And I don't know if it's just a hangout place. I did see people getting their hair cut in there. It's right across from, I've got something out of order here, but the cafe, you know, the first thing I had said was, how's their coffee? And we found right downstairs from the ashram was this little cafe. And these guys were the ones that worked there. The second guy and the youngest one was there most of the time. And these were the people that were our friends. We made friends with the people in a couple of stores because we were shopping, but we went to see them twice a day. And at first, they, you know, served us coffee, and we were a little leery. You know, you get the warnings about drinking water and eating, and you know. And some of the pictures here, I've lost some, but there's past where he is, there's nothing except a rusty refrigerator and a sink that you try not to look at while you're drinking your coffee. And we went in the day after the little altercation, and we were fried. We had walked really far, and people were tired and exhausted, and I was ready for a coffee, and they had music on, and they were going to turn it down, and they saw us coming, they were going to turn it down. And one of the yoga teachers with us said, "Oh, don't turn it down, turn it up." And this is apparently understood in any language. Turn up the music, you know. So they did, and we all started dancing, and they loved it. Every time we went in after that, they turned on the music and they turned it up. And the first coffee, okay, that was the first coffee they decorated for us, because the first one was just plain, here's your cappuccino, thank you. And before we left, they were doing these kind of things. And they'd see us coming, and then they'd start making them special. And that was the other thing that I thought about. You know, wherever you go, you know, what's important to me is friends. My favorite thing in the world is coffee and philosophy. Sitting around drinking coffee and talking about real stuff, I realize has been the only thing that I've consistently wanted to do for the last 50 years. Yeah. And fortunately, I don't want to be a ballet dancer. I can drink coffee and sit around and talk till the very end, you know. So I think I covered everything I wanted to. I will do Connect the Dots if anybody's interested in it. What time do we usually do that? Is it? 4:30. Okay. Okay. So if you want to come back up, get a snack or something, and come back up and we'll chat. And I thank you all for having me. You are, there's one other thing I wanted to say. I did have a holy experience at that arty in India, but I have had many of the same kind of experience here. And I've had them in other groups, and I've had them in unexpected places. So as much as I love going to India, and as cool as it sounds to be a speaker at Unity and discuss my trip to India, because that feeds my ego in a way that nothing else will do. But I want to say it doesn't take that. You know, I could sit and have coffee or tea or whatever, you know, or if you're gluten-free or whatever, water. If you drink water, I could sit and we could hang out. And I could do what I love to do most in the world. So I want to thank you all, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Bunny. Thank you for not only the journey you went on, but for bringing it back for us and sharing it with us. It makes it a great experience